Scott, it's been an exciting day here in the city today, in the province, because it's Doug Ford versus Francois Legault, as it turns out. So earlier today, this has to do, of course, with the fact that a new law was passed in Quebec, which is, I think, fair to say, looked at by most people as unnecessary and picks the wrong target by focusing on doctors. So when Doug Ford was asked about this today, you're going to hear what he had to say, followed by, finally, Francois Legault's reaction from just a little earlier this afternoon. Here you go.
Call 1-800-DOUG-FORD, all the docs. Come by, call me on my cell phone. It's on the internet, and we'll have you working real quick.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford said that he invites doctors from Quebec to move to Ontario. This is unacceptable. It's a total lack of judgment.
Is it really? I don't know. Scott, what's your take on this?
Well, it's a little elbows up, which I thought we were supposed to be directing toward the United States. You know, Doug Ford's on quite a run these days. You know, first he's poking the Trump bear, now he's poking the Legault bear. But you know, look, these provinces are so desperate for doctors. They're so desperate for physicians. It's such a critical challenge for any premier. If you want to get reelected, you better have a story about healthcare, and you better have a story that registers with patients about healthcare. And so, you know, you can sort of see where Doug Ford's coming from. It's kind of like, you know, as they say, school in the summertime, no class. But Legault's response is so thin-skinned, it doesn't do him any help. It actually harms his case, because people are like, hey, buddy, you're the author of this misfortune. Don't be surprised if somebody lunches in on your mistake.
Right. And by the way, to be fair, we already know one of the other stories today, Scott, was that about 100 doctors here in Quebec have already apparently begun looking at the option of going to New Brunswick or Ontario, so border provinces here. So I'm not sure. You know, the last picture I saw of Doug Ford and Francois Legault had them both smiling, shaking hands, best of friends. I guess that's over with, huh?
Well, it feels like Legault's going to consider it over with. You know, Ford does these things, and he kind of goes, hey, you know, we're best friends. You know, I kind of like screwed you at the drive-through, but like, whatever. It's okay, good now, right? And Legault may go, actually, it's not that great. Yeah. I'll tell you this. I've actually worked for provincial governments and been involved in negotiations with medical associations, with the doctors, and you get into these things. I think two things that I've observed over the years. I did 4 sets of negotiations in Ontario with the Ontario Medical Association for doctors' pay and compensation. And the first is, it's very tempting when you're in government to think that you're right and the public will be with you. And that because you think, well, everyone thinks, you know, those doctors are rich and they've got the world by the tail. But it doesn't work out that way. A fight for 15 minutes might work, but a fight for any longer than 15 minutes, people say, hey, you know what? You're effectively attacking the healthcare system. So it is undermining. That's the first thing. The second thing is you can't pick that fight when you're weak. The only time you can possibly pick that fight is when you're strong. And Legault is weak. And his refusal to recognize that, passing this bill, invoking closure, going to war with the doctors, they're not going to drop. Like, I mean, they know he's politically weak. So their mission now is to defeat him. That's how they overcome this legislation. And so he's just mobilized an entire, very active, well-financed, very political, very shrewdly political group of opponents. And like, if he didn't have a ton of trouble already, he's just brought more upon himself.
I don't want to sort of play this out, but that said, do you think there's at some point the government backing down on this thing and simply saying, oh, okay, we're going to pull it back a little bit, or can you even do that once you've done this already?
I mean, look, anything's possible in politics. If they make you bleed hard enough, then you'll wrap a bandage on it and call it a cure. But I think they had to have calculated that this could cause trouble. They had to have calculated that it would cause controversy. They must believe that it works in their favor. So don't expect them to back down right away. If they're going to, have launched this, they're going to be prepared to fight it a little while. And what I'm saying is it's fundamental miscalculation.
Okay.
It's the kind of thing you can talk yourself into believing that the politics will work out well for you when you're sitting in a boardroom. But you can get out in the real world, you quickly find out it ain't so.
Let me get to this other story today. I got to tell you, I kind of smiled when I heard us describing this on the news, where Mark Carney and, of course, Donald Trump were at the same meeting, and they were at dinner last night, and the description here was, Scott, they smiled and pointed at each other like they were two kids in high school who'd broken up and were seeing each other for the first time since the breakup. What's going on here? Were there talks? Have we heard of anything happening between the two of them?
My favorite description is, I heard someone said they did finger guns at each other. How cute is that? Oh my goodness. I mean, I know they're not dating anymore, but don't you feel like maybe they might want to get back together? Like maybe we'll see what happens with the Sadie Hawkins dance. I bet Donald extends an invitation. I don't know. I don't know how to read this. I do know that Trump is a mercurial, temporary beast. That is the most important thing to remember about Trump. Yes, he's temperamental, but he's also temporary. And so when he sees Carney, as a bully, of course, like he can huff and puff on, too sociable. When he sees Carney, when he's across the table from him, he doesn't have like the personal physical courage to say, hey, I got a problem with you. He has to be like, hey, buddy, hey, it's okay. So I don't know. We'll see. I'd be very shocked if we're talking about this 3-4 months from now. There'll be new events, there'll be new interventions, there'll be new enemies for Trump, and we'll get back to the negotiating table. It feels like this is a moment in time, but I do think it clarifies the fact that you can't count on Trump. As if you didn't know that already. Yeah. But if you can't tell truth to somebody, then how do you talk to them at all? And isn't the essence of trade negotiations talking? You can't really negotiate with somebody who will not tell and will not accept the truth.
Fair enough. I'm going to leave it there. Only we need to close off by talking about the Blue Jays again. I know we talked at the beginning of the series. You got to hand that I'm not pulling for the Jays because I'm a Yankees fan, and of course, you and I are kind of on the same page, I guess, that way. But so, the team that I think a lot of people might have counted out after the last game in LA just came back and did what they've done, I guess, all year, showed some grit, ended up winning a game. I'm going to ask you a bigger question here, which I brought up on my show yesterday. You pay your money to see Shohei Ohtani, the best player in baseball possibly ever. You go to the park, you pay your money, and instead they intentionally walk the guy 4 times in the course of a game. And I said yesterday, maybe it's time to introduce something like the Ohtani rule or the Aaron Judge rule, because it's the same for him, where you cannot intentionally walk someone more than X number of times in a game. Say it's 2, because this is the only sport where you can actively negate someone else's power. You can't say in hockey, hey, you know what? We're not going to let Connor McDavid on the ice because he's their best player. You can't do it anywhere else. Why can you do it in baseball? And I know it's been there for like 100 years, but maybe it's time for a change. What do you think?
Well, I'm all for changing the rule after Game 7. Okay, so you and I are not coming from the same place. We monstrously disagreed about the Yankees and Jays. I am 100% with the Jays.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I want to see LA absolutely monstered. Everybody's going, oh, LA, they're so great, they're so unbeatable, their payroll, whatever, Look, it ain't easy to repeat in modern sport.
Yeah.
Where I'm at on this rule is it's a little bit, if I'm going to use a political analogy, because we're supposed to talk about politics here, it's like negative advertising, okay? People say, you know what, Scott Reid, you went and you ran all those negative ads on your political opponent. You're an awful guy. And my answer is, yeah, you know what? I did. I ran negative ads. Yeah, you're right. I did. I walked them 5 times in a row. My job is to win. It is not to build a better game. It is not to build a perfect world. It is not to run a seamless, wonderful, ethical campaign. My job is to beat the other guy. And so if you're going to do it, you got to change the rules. But given that the rule exists, I wish the Jays had walked him 6 times. I was so angry when they didn't walk him in the 7th inning. I'm like, why are we pitching to this guy? First base is wide open, and he's an absolute monster.
I hate you. No, the rule has to change. That's silly. Not now, obviously, but that's what the offseason is for. Talk about stuff like this. You're a fan. You pay your money to see the best player in the world play, not to see him run to first base after he's been intentionally walked. But we'll leave it at that.
then the son of a gun should have signed in Toronto. If you want me to cheer for him to succeed, he's got to be playing for my team.
He almost was. He came, didn't he?
Well,
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows in the end? I was so duped. I sat in a bar for 4 hours watching the reports of the plane. Is it going to land or coming to Toronto?
Yeah.
I felt like a fool.
They tracked his plane, and he opted to go to L.A. Wow. Can't you imagine why he'd go to L.A. instead of Toronto, Scott? Can you? Yeah.
No,
Scott Reid. See you later.
The girls, the sunshine.
Yeah.
What's there?
Hollywood. Yeah. Thank you, Scott. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?
Kids wanna rock.